collapse. It's inexcusable. They're 1-4. They should not be there. Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lisco. He's your host, James Rapine. This is the Locked On Bengals podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day, even after embarrassing, brutal losses like this one, which we will break down and talk about what needs to change for this team as they're now 1-4. We're on YouTube or everywhere you get your podcasts. If you're interested in staying up to date, as you should be, on all things Bengals, your team, you can find us on those spots. And shout out to the everydayers and all of you who make us your first listen for checking us out today after a tough game. LinkedIn Jobs is the sponsor of this episode. Helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. And James, the Bengals at 1-4 have the second worst scoring defense in the NFL, the fourth best scoring offense in the NFL, and that's with a low scoring game in week one to keep those numbers both in check a little bit. Really bad stuff in this game.
Yeah, and they're also ranked 32nd in being able to make plays with the game on the line. They've lost 4 games by a total of 15 points. It's just brutal. All one possession losses. You know, your 5-point Monday nighter, your 3 points today, 6 points the week one. I mean, 1 point in Kansas City. Like, just brutal, brutal, brutal. And so, yeah, I think about I think about this team, and there was so much good today, Jake. And part of it is because I have to rate the story and have the story ready to go as the game ends. I had like 3 different versions of the Bengals win. 38-28 was my first one, and that's not jinxing it. That's what I do every single game, whether they're up or down. Then I had 38-35, then 41-38. Then you have it the other way, 44-38 Ravens. And then they get another chance. And that's the struggle here is I think about the game and everything, all of the good that happened on offense, all of the bad that happened on defense. And then the defense does what it didn't do 2 weeks ago against the Commanders. And they hold to a field goal, and then they get a stop in overtime. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't think that was going to happen. And that's when the game should have been over. And it wasn't. And I think the biggest story is 2 things. One, you have a rookie holder that finally looked like a rookie holder, and that's the nightmare scenario of when that happened. We can discuss that. But everybody is frustrated with the 3 straight runs in overtime following the Jermaine Pratt fumble recovery. What's your reaction to that? Naturally, I'm always put the ball in Nine's hands. At the same time, if the rookie holder holds the ball the way the rookie holders held the ball all throughout camp, through the first 4 games of the year, well, then I'm sure we're not having this conversation. And yet here we are. The 53-yard field goal doesn't work, and the Ravens win it 2 plays later.
Yeah, I guess you could argue that no matter how much field position you gain after the fumble, if Rico handles – it was a bad snap too. If Rico handles a bad snap that way, then you can't make the field goal anyway.
He said the snap was fine. Just full disclosure.
I'm sure he would say that. He's taking accountability. Yeah. That's great. It wasn't fine. It was playable. You can handle that snap, but it wasn't a good snap. It was an off-target but playable snap. And so, yes, he should have gotten the hold down. Yes, the snap could have been better. But regardless of how they missed a field goal, when you call 3 straight runs, when your quarterback is playing the way he's playing, and there are going to be some fans that point to the last couple of drives when he wasn't playing the way he was playing for the rest of that second half, it's playing not to lose, right? It's playing so conservatively. Both Joe Burrow and Zac Taylor after the game talking about, the Ravens have a pass rush. If you take a sack there, you're out of field goal range. I'd rather try a 60-yard field goal just as much as I'd like to try a 53-yard field goal. Like, those aren't – I know they're different. They're not different enough to take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands, to me, the way that they've been killing the Ravens secondary the entire game until Ja'Marr Chase, in his words, ran a shitty route that leads to Joe Burrow's only interception of the game. I hated it. I hated the 3 straight runs. Joe Burrow supposedly changed from a pass to a run on the first play after the fumble. That should be a play action pass all day. The Bengals go under center there. One thing that highlighted for me, James, is I understand that this coaching staff likes Andre Yosevach's ability to contribute as a run blocker, but I hate taking T. Higgins off the field for 12 personnel, and they did on that play. In crunch time, you're taking T. Higgins off the field. You had 3 players today play out of their minds good on offense. Well, 2 really, and T was really good too. But Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow were on another level today outside of the one play I just mentioned. T. Higgins was also really good. And you're taking T off the field for that play? I don't like that. I don't like running it 3 times. And when I say, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the background. 1 and 4 is inexcusable. That is the players, that is also the coaches, that is the decision to run it 3 times and take it out of Joe Burrow's hands, a lesson that we thought Zac Taylor learned against the San Francisco 49ers a few years ago. That is the spot you're in on defense where the only way for you to steal a play is to gamble and sell out to stop the run or the pass. And when you guess wrong, you're getting gashed because you have guys that can't figure out where they're supposed to be on the field and you can't string plays together. And you're emptying out your entire roster, playing almost everybody on the defensive side of the ball. And you go 3 safeties deep and all your safeties are bad. I'm starting to rant, but back to the 3 plays, that's part of what's inexcusable about this. It cannot be Joe Burrow trying to drag the entire Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins and whatever players were fine on defense. It can't be just those guys trying to drag the rest of the team and the coaching staff and the front office into wins. It's not sustainable. Even if they win today, we have concerns about how sustainable it is because they're scoring a ton of points, but they're still losing games. They can't finish. Yeah. It's that old aphorism, right? That you always say, bad teams finding ways to lose games, and they keep finding new ones, and they keep surprising us with the way they do it.
Yeah, it's been different things for sure. Look, 3 straight runs. So it's Chase Brown, no gain. Chase Brown, 3 yards. Chase Brown, no gain. 1, get Zach Moss in there a little bit because he's your passing down back. At least pretend you're going to pass. And I know Chase Brown caught the touchdown today, but there's very clearly a different feel, different vibe when Zach is in the game, when they're going to throw it. Similar to T go in or Andre go in for T, like to your point. Same thing for Cody Ford's the extra tackle, and he was on that second down play that went for 3 yards. And then so you get the ball and you're in at a 56-yard field goal. And I get that's in range, but to your point, look, I get Evan McPherson in Money Mac. There's so many things that can go wrong with the field goal. Mm-hmm. It could get blocked. It could get tipped. I thought it got tipped initially before I saw the hold when the broadcast went back to the hold because the ball just looked weird. And so you have to put it like this. If Joe gets sacked on second down, I'm probably not as annoyed about the result as I am being conservative and not letting Joe make the call, the decision, putting the game in his hands. And it goes hand in hand there. And so that's what sucks, because if you pick up 8 yards, maybe it's just a little different. The vibe is different. I also thought it was weird. They had personnel-wise called a timeout before that attempt. Mm-hmm. And had to get the right personnel on the field. Just another weird thing. But that's, after everything that happened, that should be game over. Jermaine Pratt fumble. Lamar Jackson gifted it to you.
It was a gift.
He gifted it to you. After everything that happened, and we could talk about the Burrow interception in the 90 seconds to go, game tied, and you get sacked on that down, and all of those things. There's a lot of stuff to discuss, but you get this gift in overtime. Go win the game. Yeah. Like, that's it. Go win the game. Don't sneak away with the win. Go win it. And
it's not like they're even running the ball well either. That's the other thing that's frustrating to me about it. You're not even running the ball well. I get it, maybe, if you're running the ball well in the second half. That went away. The Ravens made their adjustment. They took away your running game.
No doubt. I mean, Chase Brown got a couple chunks early, and then that was it. It was like, all right, we're taking this away. And Burrow was on fire, and it really does. It feels a lot like San Francisco a few years ago in 21. Like, there are vibes to that where it's like, man, Burrow's the reason you have 38. And you ride or die with your ride or die. 9 is their ride or die, and they died without 9 today, essentially, by not using him with the game on the line. We have a lot more to discuss. All of those things I just mentioned. The Bengals are 1-4. We'll continue the conversation coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools that you need to hire the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. That's why you got to post on LinkedIn, because over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring, and you should too. And right now, you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode of Locked On Bengals is also sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something that scares you? Maybe it's that the Bengals won't figure this thing out in the Joe Burrow era. Maybe it's that the offense needs a new play caller. Maybe it's just that they won't ever find the right defensive personnel. Well, Halloween lets us have fun with what scares you, but if it's a real fear that you need to address, it's not related to the Bengals, something in your life is going on that you need to overcome, therapy is a great tool for facing those fears, because sometimes the scariest thing isn't actually facing those fears, it's holding ourselves back from facing them in the first place. If you're thinking of starting therapy, you can give BetterHelp a try right now. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. All you have to do to get started is fill out a brief questionnaire to be matched with a licensed therapist that's suited to what you're looking for. And if it's not a good fit, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. You can overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Check it out at betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
All right, Jake, let's continue the conversation with the interception. We're basically going to start with the bad and go back. And I guess we could do the third down or the 90-second drive. But before that, the thing that put them in the position of being tied with the Ravens after just being so dominant on offense from late second quarter through midway through the fourth quarter, the interception. And Ja'Marr Chase said he ran a bad route. Joe Burrow didn't say that. Did say he wouldn't have done anything different on that play. Said Marlon Humphrey made a really good play. All signs point to that being on Ja'Marr. Ja'Marr was amazing today. But those are the plays. That's the difference. And giving the ball back to the Ravens there just opened the door when the door didn't need to be opened. They were 2 first downs away from winning the game for sure. They were a touchdown away from basically ending the game. A first down and a field goal away from close to ending the game. And instead you give the ball back to the Ravens after a penalty on a Ja'Marr Chase slant because he ran a bad route.
Yeah, that is a brutal moment in the game for the offense. If you want to blame the offense this year, as you're looking for things to blame with this team, you would blame the offense for not finishing games the way you want the offense to finish games. You would blame the offense for not taking advantage of those last 2 drives well enough. And you wouldn't be wrong, but I do think that when you have 10-point leads multiple times in the second half and you score 38 points, that should be enough to win a football game. And so we're going to talk about the offense here, but don't get me wrong. My primary concern for this team remains on the defensive side of the ball. I believe you agree with me there, James. There were 4 straight drives for the Cincinnati Bengals that went for touchdowns between the late second quarter and that interception drive. 4 plays, 79 yards in 25 seconds, including trips, double post call that I don't think I've seen the Bengals run before, getting Ja'Marr Chase one-on-one with a deep safety in the middle of the field. Perfect play call, perfect throw, perfect execution. They put themselves in a really challenging situation from a time perspective by not calling timeouts on the previous Baltimore drive. I understand why they didn't, the way Baltimore was moving the ball, but because Baltimore took a timeout, they score a touchdown there. They go 12 plays, 70 yards out of the half, including very difficult third down conversions from Joe Burrow, part of a stretch where he converted at least 7 straight third downs. They were 1 for 5, I think, in the first half on third downs and finished positive on third downs in this game, which speaks to how well he was playing. In the second half, they go 12 plays, 70 yards. They go Ja'Marr Chase, flat screen for a touchdown, and then you get the interception. But even on that interception, the Ravens hadn't stopped a slant all day. All day. The Bengals were killing them on slants. The only balls they didn't complete on intended slant targets were either drops or high throws from Joe Burrow. There were a couple of those in this game. But Burrow was right. He needed to play perfectly in this game. He was very close to playing perfectly in this game. Everyone is going to say this on every single podcast that talks about the Bengals, every single article. Joe Burrow said it himself. They're going to quote Joe Burrow before the game. They're going to quote Joe Burrow after the game because he was right. But that's insane. You shouldn't have to be absolutely perfect. You shouldn't have to have your receivers win on every single route. I mean, terrible outcome, by the way. The first slant of the game that doesn't work because of a defensive play is a interception instead of a pass breakup. But to Ja'Marr's point, saying that he ran a bad route, he got jammed out of the play. And Joe Burrow, you throw a slant with anticipation, right? You don't see it open. You trust your guy, your number one receiver, your Ja'Marr Chase, who's going crazy in this game, is going to win that route against press. And worst case, you're throwing an incomplete pass. Didn't happen that way. Have a hard time putting too much on Joe there. The drive to start or to finish the fourth quarter, though, like, I don't know what you really want Joe Burrow to do there. There's not much of a chance on that first down play. Maybe you want the draw on second down, or you want the pass to just be completed there on second down as Burrow doesn't quite get it to T. Higgins in time for him to make a clean play on the ball. Hard time blaming Burrow for that one either, to be clear. And then the conservatism in overtime. So you could point to the offense not finishing the game. You wouldn't be wrong. But again, despite those things going wrong, it's unfair to say that they need to be perfect. They need to score 40. And we were joking. Go score 40 and you can win the game. They needed to score 40, and they didn't.
No, you're right. They needed to score 40. They should have scored 40. They scored 36. Defense gave them 2. They should have scored 39, to be quite honest, but at least. But you're right. You get the ball back 95 seconds to go or so. I think it was 135 left. Yep. You get the sack. You're behind the chains to 2nd and 17. And then Burrow, he throws it to T, and it's a contested play. It's a tough play. You need to get yards there. And then you're 3rd and 17. They don't have any timeouts. You got to run the clock out. Like, no issue there. At that point, you do have to run it with Chase Brown or Zach Moss. But what I will say is I do wonder if that possession and how it went aided Zach, who we just mentioned it. I mean, before the interception. So it's touchdown, 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 interception, 3 and out at the end of regulation. And then you get the ball in overtime after the fumble. I wonder if it's that 3 and out where he's like, a lot of bad things are happening. Let's just get the hell out of here with a win. And
I'm sure, but that's coaching scared.
And it does, agreed. And that usually doesn't work. That usually doesn't work in anything. To be quite, if you're playing a pickup basketball game and you're up 10-7, and you're like, all right, I just got to get one more, and you're just you're probably losing 10-9. Like you still have to be aggressive. What got you there? What got you to that point? And so I do think just tying them together, how bad that last drive went at the end of the regulation, because I was like, all right, well, they had the interception. Now just going to go downfield, and they're going to go kick a field goal and win it, because the defense was able to hold Baltimore to 3 and have 95 seconds left on the clock. And they didn't do it, and it's because of that sack. And I'm sure Zach was like, well, we're within Evans' range now. If we get sacked, then it's a 60-yarder. Then I'm worried about that, and we're probably considering punting. And you don't want to overthink it either. What's your bread and butter? Yeah. Joe Burrow is your bread, butter. It's the full course. And I know he checked into a run on one of the plays. That's his job. If you don't have a good look against your passing play, you don't just run it to run it. Like run the play to run the play. You want the best look for that defense. But man, that's a tough one. That's one that a lot of people are going to think about and discuss for quite some time when Zac Taylor comes up, when this 1-4 record comes up.
Even if Joe checks out of one run, what about the next 2 plays? What about the personnel you have on the field?
Yeah.
Checks out of 1 pass. Yeah. I mean, there's still 2 more plays there. Just because you don't succeed on I don't know, man. There's more going on than that. We haven't discussed the defense enough.
And why not throw it on 3rd down? It's 3rd and 7. What's scarier, Joe Burrow throwing it to Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins, or running with Chase Brown?
No brainer. We haven't talked about the defense enough. It was a tale of two halves, but the defense is still largely, despite getting some reinforcements this week, looking like the same unit that we've seen the last couple of weeks. And that's where the problem is, really, for this team. We will discuss the defense to finish up the show coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can get in on the action right now with America's #1 sportsbook, and FanDuel has an offer that you have to take advantage of right now. You're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. That means maybe you're watching us and it's right before Sunday Night Football, or you're thinking ahead to the Bengals and their chances in Week 6 on Sunday Night Football against the New York Football Giants. Well, you can get in on the action right now with FanDuel. Again, get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It doesn't have to win. It's right there. $5 and boom, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So whether it's the Bengals, whether it's Major League Baseball in the playoffs, whether it's NBA futures, FanDuel has you covered. Again, that is FanDuel.com.
The defense gave up 41 points. They scored 2. The first half was looking promising. The first drive, I was thinking, well, this is bad. This looks like the same team.
Yeah.
And then they force a punt. And then they not only force a punt, but things are trending in the right direction. Instead of 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2, they're getting 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 5. They get a 3 and out. The Bengals offense, unfortunately, goes 3 and out on their first drive. Goes incomplete sack on their third drive in a 7-7 game. And then goes 3 and out again after the Ravens score a touchdown to go up 14-7. At that point, you're thinking, man, this team is just bad. The defense is getting some stops, but the offense can't do anything with it. Man, what are we doing? How is the offense not figuring it out? And then you get that beautiful Ryan Rico punt down to the 1 yard line or whatever it was, 2 yard line. It was a -2 yard safety. Sam Hubbard safety. And even after the safety, the Bengals run 5 plays and punt. It's 14-9. The Bengals defense somehow gets another stop. They get the Ravens into a 3rd and 10 after an incomplete pass on first down, a run for no gain on second down, and Baltimore weirdly choosing to take a timeout with 49 seconds left on 3rd and 10. The Bengals not calling a timeout there tells you everything that they're thinking. They're thinking, we don't want to give up more points here. Baltimore calls the timeout, gives the ball back to the Bengals. The Bengals punish them for taking that timeout with a touchdown. But in the first half, you're thinking, well, maybe this defense has got something. But man, this offense needs to figure it out. Until that sequence, it starts with the safety and leads to them scoring going into halftime. They then double up coming out of the half, and then the defense just is exactly what we feared it has been. They have to sell out to stop anything. They're trying the safety rotation that we talked about. Jordan Battle dips his toe in. And I looked during live grading at the worst graded Bengals defensive players in this game. They were the 3 safeties they played. They played almost every player on the roster on defense in this game. Tyson Anderson and Dejon Anthony, I think the only 2 that didn't get in for a defensive
Maybe
snap.
they should. Maybe they should.
They have a safety problem. They have a defense problem. It goes to coaching. It goes to personnel. They couldn't get pressure consistently. When they did get personnel, Sam Hubbard was getting stiff arm to the ground, 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and Lamar Jackson was throwing touchdowns. That was the second half. The defense is a huge problem for this team.
Yeah, by the way, Sam Hubbard, he's going to be on every highlight reel, and rightfully so. You got to bring him down. You don't bring him down. Hey, Geno Stone, don't lose a tight end. Don't lose a tight end. Like you mentioned the safeties. Like,
yeah.
What in the world? Like, because Vaughn got beat on the one where I think he thought coverage was over the top on Charlie Kolar, and then Jordan Battle got beat as soon as he got into the game. First play, They went after him. But in the end zone there, like it's a scramble drill. Like just don't let Isaiah Likely run around. Like, you're a safety. He's a tight end. Like it's not like he got bodied. Like he got beat. And that can't happen. Yeah. I mean, this defense gave up 3 straight touchdowns to start the second half. Touchdown. They hold him to a field goal and you're like, and it just can't be that way. I mean, that's 24 points. And then the fumble You finally get a stop. Like, that's it. Like, how many stops did it take? How many possessions did it take in the second half to where you're like, man, the Ravens actually didn't score? They didn't score there? And it's because it's something they were gifted. It wasn't even something that the defense really forced. They just kind of picked up the ball, which they deserve credit for. But sheesh.
I mean, you can't even really call it a stop. You call it a gift. I mean, yeah, you deserve credit for picking up the ball, but that's twice in this game Lamar Jackson put snaps on the ground. The other time he put the snap on the ground was that Sam Hubbard play I just talked about. And I went back and watched that play several times. It was a full 2 seconds between the snap and Lamar Jackson actually having the ball in his hands and standing up. 3 seconds before he becomes a passer again. 4 seconds, Sam Hubbard finally has some pressure, and then everybody knows what happened the rest of the way. But you're telling me you can't get a pressure when the ball is literally on the ground? The QB hasn't even dropped back for 3 seconds?
What that play should have ended up is a scrum, balls on the ground, Lamar falls on it.
Yes.
5 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Best case for the Ravens. That's how that should have ended up.
Yeah.
Best case, maybe a throwaway, right? Like he picks it up clean and gets away and throws it away.
Yeah. He was sacked once for 3 yards.
Which is the second drive of the game, early.
Yeah.
It was on a scramble.
Sam Hubbard's the one who got the credit for it. So.
Yeah. The Ravens were largely held in check early in this game, in the run game. The Bengals were selling out to stop it. Harbaugh came out at halftime. They're doing those halftime interviews now with the sideline reporter, said, they're giving us all these heavy run fronts. We're going to we need to find explosives in the passing game when we get those fronts. They immediately throw that ball to Charlie Kohler. And the early rush success rate and EPA for the Ravens was pretty bad. Their late down rushes, they had 7 third and fourth down rushing plays in this game. All of them went for first downs. The Bengals just could not string stops together effectively. When you have a 10-point lead at 31-21 and at 24-14 and at 38-28, 3 times in the second half, the Bengals had a 10-point lead. And I know they had the interception, but you got to get a stop. You got to find ways to get stops. It's a team game. The offense, like I said earlier, can't be expected to go score 40 every week and win games. 38 should be enough. That should be enough points.
Yep, it should. And you also, if your defense is going to be that flawed, your offense can't turn it over and your holder can't mess up.
Yeah.
Like the margin for error is what it is. And
that's
right now, against these elite level teams, and the Ravens are really darn good. And Joe Burrow played awesome. I would say career high 5 touchdown passes. Seemed to have answers. Think about it, with Cody Ford at tackle. I mean, there are some positives here, but the negatives, when you put yourself in a 1-3 hole and you fall to 1-4, they are what they are. Where do they go from here? I think we can have that conversation this week. We're going to have a lot of tough conversations, I think, this week about the Bengals, what they are, who they are, and what they can be this year. Because I'll tell you this, Jake, if you would have told me that the big names on this team would be healthy and they would be 1-4 after 5 weeks. If you would have said that when you were here at camp, I would have laughed. I might have sent you packing. You might have been back in Canada. You might have had to take a flight back because there's just no way I would have believed it. Right. And that's the reality they face for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah. I mean, it's a team that has been a play short several times. That's the theme of the season. They're missing a single play or 2 plays here or there. They are leaving opportunities on the field this week. You could call it the hold. You could call it the running plays. You could call it the interception. You could call it one of those early drives. Point to any of those things going differently. And maybe the Bengals are 2-3 right now. We feel really good about a good win where the offense looks good and the defense did just enough. But we're not. And it's a team that consistently has been lacking those plays, and whether that is the players or the roster construction or the investments that haven't panned out on the defensive side of the ball with all the early picks in the draft, or whether it's injuries or whether it's coaching. And I do think that there are some coaches that probably should be on the hot seat at this point, especially on the defensive side of the ball. At some point, the miscommunications over more than a season of football and the decisions about what personnel they want in the secondary and how those guys are used at certain times. Like at some point that does come back to the coaching staff, right? And it's not just the players, but whatever the reason is, and there's a laundry list, they're 1-4. And even if they're better than that by aggregate, it's hard to say they don't deserve that record. because they're not making the plays they need to make to win these games.
Yep. And we could talk this week about the staff, because I think a lot of people are with you staff-wise. Maybe you're not thinking about the same names they are, but it's certainly a conversation we can have.
It's at some point it gets to that point is all I'm thinking. Like at some point, the buck has to stop somewhere. And it's in a few places, to be fair. And we'll see after film review, after day to digest, after more time to think about it, where we're going from here, like you said, James, because you could play the schedule game and you could very easily see them getting to a winning record by the next time they played Baltimore. But can you really be that confident in that right now? I don't know. We'll have plenty of time to look ahead, but that's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. A brutal loss. Sorry we've had to deal with so many of those this year. Until next time, take care of yourself and have a good one.